You start recording. Hey, throwing some pots tonight using Soldate 60 clay. It's really firm and I'm making raku pots with it. And I had some potter friends ask me to make a little video and explain some of the principles of throwing. So here we go. Centering, principle number 1. Lots of water, reducing friction is the principle. Principle number 2 in centering. If you're a right-handed thrower, your left arm into the hip. So slouch and tilt, and then your elbow will reach right in the crook between your leg and your hip. And then you can use your whole body to press this hand forward. But you don't want to get it out here, because when the clay gives you back pressure, your form's going to move and you won't be able to center. So you got to tuck that in and then move your body to reach for the clay. So you probably will have to scoot your stool all the way up. Next principle of the radius. So the clay moves in many different directions. And if we put our hand on the top here, it tends to give us this kind of action. But if you lift your hand up like this, what happens is you miss the very center and you stay off the diameter, and you're only fighting, if you keep your hand in one place, you're only fighting one direction, and that's easy to manage. So, third principle, whenever possible, you're going to want to employ isometrics. So the idea is, when you press your hands together, it's a more stable situation. As opposed to having your hands apart, I would be able to grab your wrists and easily move your hand around. And that's what the clay is going to do. Clay is going to, especially at first when you're trying to center it, it's going to move your hands. And that's not a good way to center clay. So, a lot of water, slouch, elbow and hip, and then this hand on top, and this is a firm handshake. I'm using isometrics here. And I'm avoiding the diameter. I'm using the radius. When I lean in, the clay goes up. When I put pressure on the top and I kick this elbow out here, I'm able to achieve that isometric force rather than being like this or like this. Okay? I want to be like this. My right elbow is sticking way out. Then when you center, if you have everything in place, it doesn't take long to center. Even someone who's newer, if they're doing this, they should be able to center in well under a minute for 2 or 3 pounds of clay. All right, opening the clay for a right-hander. Left hand, like that, and then right hand, peace sign locked together, comes in here. I like to hold a sponge, and I put the sponge in between the top of my middle finger and the bottom of my right hand middle finger. So we're right there. Forearm goes on the leg, stretch the flesh, and now you're anchored. You can use your body weight. We're very stable. We've reduced our extension. That's the 5th principle. Reducing extension rather than being extended all the way from the shoulder down to here. We've reduced that to just our forearm and our wrist. All right, lots of water again. And again, you can see a little nipple right in the middle here because I'm staying off of the center. If I go directly down in the center, it's going to be really hard to hold that position. But if I go off the center, piece of cake. I change up what I'm doing a little bit. Once I get it open, instead of having this, I just flatten it out and put one of my fingers, doesn't matter which one, right on top of that middle finger. And I use that middle finger to pull and get my floor. And then of course we want to check our bottom. Okay, the rest of this should be really another video. I'm going to check my bottom. Looks pretty good on the thick side, but I'll just take off a little bit and I'll be set. So the rest of this I'm not going to explain too much. It really deserves a lot more detail and time dedicated to it, but I'll let you watch it. If you don't do a good job centering at this point, you're going to be having a lot of problems. You can see there's a lot of funky ways that I configure my fingers and put them together. And to keep them nice and stiff requires an internal form of isometrics. You're just locking your fingers and your hand into a specific shape and using it as a tool. And sometimes it can be a little uncomfortable. So there's a lot of joy in throwing, but along with it comes some pain. Depends on how much clay you're throwing and how firm the clay is and what your tolerance is. This particular bag of clay is uneven and has some air bubbles, and you can see it moving around on me. And I just continue on and fix what I can. I don't try to like fix these problems. I just pull through them. And at the end, you know, if it's a little wonky, I'll flip my top or cut it off with a pin tool. Usually don't have to do that, but it's always an option. Alright, so just to keep this short, I'm not going to finish this pot. I can make more videos in the future. You can just leave messages on this post and make requests, and I'll do my best to get something out as soon as I can. Have a good night, guys.